Well, it's now 10:30, and you are tuned in to Brainstorming the Human Connection, and it's brought to you by the South Dakota Humanities Council. My name is Lawrence Diggs. I will be the inquisitor today, or interviewer. But I want to remind you that this is an interactive program, the kind of program where we look forward to your contributions to the conversation. We want to have a conversation as opposed to just a couple of talking heads, talking at you. We like it to be more active than passive. We think the more you put into it, the more you will get out of it. As you have probably seen around, if you have been looking, and if you haven't been looking, this might be the beginning of looking. There are lots of initiatives going on in our various reservations. And, just like we have people who come from overseas and they don't really have any idea of what's going on. Many people right here don't have any idea of what's going on. The reservations can be kind of out of sight, out of mind. Many people don't have relationships with people who live on the reservation or even go on the reservation. And that's quite a shame, because there's lots of exciting things happening. And even though there are arguably many things that still need doing, and there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, there's a lot of progress being made, and people are trying things, and people are innovating despite the obstacles that they face. They're learning to jump higher and run faster and get things done. And one of those people who I have known for quite a while is Dustina Gill, who is our guest today. And she has been someone in the trenches, especially with the young people, for years. In fact, her family, are involved in many ways in doing things on the res, but in particular with young people, as I have known them. And she is the CEO and founder of Nis'to, and it's a nonprofit organization located on Lake Traverse Reservation. And welcome, Dustina.
Hi, everyone.
So let's start by talking a little bit about Dustina, like any kind of secrets you want to reveal, No, well, you heard it first here, No, tell us a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, so that, the folks listening here will have some kind of idea of your elevator speech anyway. Who is Dustina?
Okay. Ham Dakyapi, Sitomini Shapi Yamakiapi, Washichu Chaji, Dustina Gill, Sisi Twa Betwa Oyate, Achbekute, Edyati, Tokanua Enemy Swim, Mikushi, Dorothy Gill, Mazaperi, Me Ate, Dennis Gill, Zeichia. My Dakota name is Paints Red Around Her. I introduced my grandmother and my father. They are the ones whose knowledge that I'm sharing today, a lot of the things that I've learned was through them, and I always acknowledge them, because I probably won't be here sharing all of this if I didn't have them to teach that to me. I grew up at Toka Bay at the lake. Attended Teoshu Travel School, went to the Flanju Indian School my high school years, lived in Minneapolis for a couple years, and then returned home. Well, I went to Albuquerque. I thought I was gonna, go off and live over there and make a difference, but I caught myself missing the kids I worked with here, and This is back when we wrote letters all the time. I don't know who still does it, but my grandmother and I would write a letter every week to each other. And I would always ask her, how are my kids? And they were the kids, who lived at the enemy some housing that we did stuff with. And I was trying to go to different places in Albuquerque and volunteer. And to them, it was unheard of. They didn't understand why somebody would do that. And one day I realized, why am I out here trying to help kids when we got kids at home who I could be giving my time to? So came home, stayed involved in being an advocate for the youth. I worked for our tribal government for about 17 years. A majority of it was with different administrations of our tribal chairman. And I thought that was the best place to bring opportunities to our young people. But after a while, I realized the red tape, the governmental red tape, actually unintentionally hindered a lot of opportunities, and it was actually a barrier. I started seeing the different cracks a lot of our youth were falling into and not coming out of. So made a little few-year plan to leave that and start a nonprofit. Right now, it seems like a nonprofit is the best vehicle to use to bring different types of opportunities, to be eligible for the funding opportunities that are out there. And ended it with left work with Chairman Robert Shepard's administration and created Nis'to and been doing it ever since. And I'm gonna do this until I'm not here anymore. Doing this for the
Yeah,
rest of my.
cool. So before we get too far, tell us what Nis'to means.
So knowing how the name of everything is really important. Not something you just throw out there and take lightly. There was a lot of prayers, like everything we do is with prayers. And prayed about the name, and it took about a year. Took about a year to come. And Nis'to, that's what came, and it means concern for others outside of yourself.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
that's sums it up perfectly on what we do.
Okay. So in the time that I've known you and watched you work with young people, you have quite a range in terms of the ages. And I notice also that parents often are involved. Can you talk a little bit about the structure and the overall uh, goals that you're trying to, address, or things that you're
Mhm.
trying to address and how you're doing it?
So when we first started, our focus was to it was suicide prevention. We had one year we had multiple suicides here, and it just broke my heart. And that's when I was like, all right, talk to the tribal leadership. Was like, what are we doing? Then I realized, these things have to happen outside of that realm. No government is set up to handle human issues, as we see obviously on all levels of government. So it started out as that, but the different needs kept popping up. And working with kids, we know you have to be flexible. You're not building cars. There's no mold that they're going to fit in. Everybody's different. You have to respect that. And just because we think we may have all the answers, we don't. The kids know what they need, and we need to listen to that. So it started out with youth and young adults. And I say young adults because just because you're 18 doesn't automatically make you a good decision maker. Show me that, and I have to do that. So they still need guidance. And the human brain doesn't actually mature until around the age of 26. So when we say young adults, that's 826 is the age. And a lot of it was whether it was higher ed opportunities or kids who are coming home from treatment, kids who are coming home from being incarcerated, you know, things like that. Because even though there are laws that schools are supposed to provide education to kids in jail, they're not. So, or in treatment. So if it's a mental health treatment or a substance treatment, it's usually at least 30 days. They come home and they're behind school. The school kicks them up because you're behind, you're absent. It's illegal, but it happens. And we realized a lot of those kids were the ones who were in the cracks. They were already behind on everything. So that was kind of our focus without saying it, because you know, you have to be creative on how you're gonna say things because you don't want to be labeling people or kids or anything. So reentry came in, and it's always been leadership building, skill building and leadership building, using the Dakota culture as the lens. Resilience based is a must. Strength based is a must. One thing I've noticed with working in government work, a lot of our grants, even though they're well intentioned, they're needs based. And the narrative that has to be shared with the youth or community that they're being used in are very negative. They're very beaten, brown, poor, you know, so the kids are told these things because the grant says you have to. And
Yeah.
it kids absorb and carry a lot more than I think we realize. So we have to be careful on what we say or do. So our work is resilience based, strength based.
Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by resilience based? Because that isn't intuitive, I don't think.
So one of the activities we do, we incorporate spoken word into all of our stuff. It's public speaking. It's giving them confidence. Like everything we do is a confidence builder, but we don't call it that again. So we do poetry. We call it Dakota poetry. And the first poem we always start with that I just love because it's so. A lot of the kids are like, because I don't think they're used to being asked those things.
Mm.
But the first poem they work on, we call it "Where do you get your medicine?"
Mm.
And they sit and they have conversations, and a lot of them is like my grandmother's hugs, when
Mm.
my mother was braiding my hair, you know,
Mm.
uh, the time spent with my father while we're fishing, just all of these positive things that are happening in their lives. And I think a lot of spaces aren't available for that. Back
Mm.
to needs-based funding instead of resource-based. What's out there that's working that we should be building on instead of what's broken? Tell me what's broken. I'll throw money at you with rules that's not going to let you fix it. You know, one of the things I saw with a lot of funding is everything's evidence-based. And with us and anybody working with humans, I always say we're not evidence-based. We're gosh, I can't think of the word now. Reality-based. You know, it's
Scientists will tell you there's no difference between the two, but one could parse it.
yeah.
Yeah, one could make a separation. But so how would you make a difference between reality based and evidence based?
So when there's the funding opportunities that are out there are based on a pilot project of some sort that happened somewhere,
Oh.
not in a similar community, not to similar, maybe not even Native Americans, or maybe they were, but it was in an inner city, not on a reservation. Using their evidence-based, their reality results, requiring us to fit in those boxes that were made for that.
Okay.
it, that doesn't fit. Can we do this? No.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that people are taking evidence from one place and applying it to a place where maybe that evidence isn't relevant because there's a different circumstances.
Yeah. So
Okay.
example, when we first started Nis'to, we were invited to the White House by the Obama administration,
Mm,
which is exciting.
mm,
Obama created a lot of policies that were allowed tribes and nations to move forward at a quicker pace because they got to dictate the needs,
mm,
needs not
mm,
to research. But so we went and they were putting out the report on Native American youth every year, which was a really good report. And I took copies with me and I said, these are great.
mm,
These are awesome. You guys see that, you're tracking. It had the statistics of suicide, self-harm, incarceration, all of those things. And I said, so you took the data from this, you created funding opportunities that were available, that were created by a nonprofit in DC, we call it DCized. They
mhm.
forgot. What happens to our congressional members? They're there too long. They forget. Good old hometowns of South Dakota.
Yeah.
Um, the programming and the funding opportunities were created by people who had never been on a reservation. They were non-native themselves.
Yeah.
Well-intentioned, but so it was a different type of format. And some of the reservations, our reservation was using one of the funding opportunities, and kids went and applied. It was supposed to be a youth leadership program, and kids went and applied, and they were turned down. Your grades aren't high enough. You're missing too much school. We
Yeah.
heard
But where do they apply, Christina?
they created this whole program through the tribe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Who did? I missed that. Who created the program?
One of the tribal executives created the program underneath their office,
Okay.
and well intentioned, but
Mm,
the kids, well, I said the very statistics in this report are being
yeah.
denied opportunities you created because of them.
Mm, mm, mm,
Where are they supposed to go? Because they're being told again, they're not good enough. When in
mm,
fact,
mhm.
their situations is what created the funding opportunity.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think those are the kind of growing pains that I have seen in other projects, different kind of projects people are go through, because sometimes it's even worse when the people have no idea what the problem is, let alone the solution, or what the potential solution is. They are the ones that are the money bags, but they don't really, they're just trying to go on quote common sense or intuition rather than actually come down and sit with people and listen to people. Somehow it just seems like that's a hard thing for people to do, is just to be with people and just sort of absorb them. And I've suggested that in terms of like various relationships. People say, well, how do I get to know people? I said, they don't bite, and if they do, they don't eat much, so just go and
they just nibble.
be with them. Yeah.
We call that on the ground learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the ground learning versus textbook learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's both, but there's a need for both.
Right.
And we see a lot with, so back to the recovery programs, we saw a lot of that with some of the youth we worked with, their families around recovery, or they just went into, or all of those areas, and they were having struggles on their situations because the people running such programs had never been addicted.
Mm,
That's a good thing. It's a good problem. Um,
yeah.
so if you have never been on meth, how are you going to tell someone how to
Just say
journey through it?
no. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just say no.
So there was separation. So
Mm,
some of it was, and sometimes a lot of our work is just being a catalyst.
Mm,
connect. Here's this, everybody come to the table. We're gonna
right,
have lunch. Everyone come. And this is
right.
gonna be, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and that they leave and they have plans.
Mm,
Um, one of the things we did with when somebody had tried to commit suicide and they were in the ER, it was bad, we would go sit and advocate because sometimes parents don't know. Sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's too much.
right.
So we
Yeah.
there and make sure and talk with the doctors and make sure that kid wasn't leaving
Mm,
without made sure they had a plan. Here's
mm,
your plan of action. Here's the counselor. I will call and get your appointment set up. I'll drive you there. All of those little things to make sure that they're successful in their plan.
right, right. Well, that reminds me of like a kind of a parallel problem to what we are talking about before, is that often we will have people who are professionals, and let's say particularly in the world of psychiatry slash psychology, and they are professionals and they get a lot of input, and it's valuable input from all kinds of paradigms. And that has an advantage that they can see a lot of different angles, but it also can blind us, when you come and sit down with that person, to have the beginner's mind to say, okay, now what is this child facing, and let this child come out. Sometimes the way that we have this structure, even if the professional knows that they need to do that, the structure doesn't allow it. And it seems like what you guys are doing can give more space to being with that child and being around, because sometimes they don't, more than a psychiatrist, or in air quotes a counselor, they need a friend. They need somebody that they can have eyeballs with, that's not their parents, that they can have a confidential conversation, and they feel like, when I feel something that I can't feel, even if that person doesn't, you know, even if that person doesn't know what the solution is, I can be with them and they will listen to me. You know,
Yes.
they're on my side of the table, and they may even be stern with me, but somehow I know that they love me, and
Yep.
it's just not like, well, this is their job and they're here from 9 to 9:15, and then after that, they go on to the next person,
Exactly. Just like
and you're
that.
and you're not a bother. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So when we have events and activities, we make sure we invite them because we want them to be seen in the community. It builds
Mm,
trust and the parents trust them too. Because if the kid is going to see someone and the parents say, so and so, all they're
mm,
gonna hear is, oh, we don't trust them. They're not gonna know why, but they're gonna know the parent doesn't. And as
right.
a parent, it's a lot
Mm, mm.
for me to trust you with my kid,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
sure, sure, sure.
So when there's
Yeah.
events, we always make space for them. But we also know one of the things we've been working on that'll be happening this week. There's a psychologist flying in that we've been working for years together. She's on one of the photos I sent.
Mm.
Um, such things take that long, I guess, to build up good. But
Oh, yeah.
in telehealth peer mentoring, because of the red tape of and lack of psychologists in the area. So kids know there's also people they can talk to that they never have to see, because sometimes they don't want to see people that they tell things to. Totally get that.
Mm,
So we're trying to have both. Somebody
mm.
that's in the community and then somebody they know they won't see or the parents won't see that they can share with.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You brought some pictures, or you shared some pictures with
Yeah.
us. That can we, let's say, move to those, and then maybe you can tell us what we're looking at.
Okay.
Well, that looks like it hurts.
So that's our bundle carriers camp.
Mm,
Um, it's actually starting on Monday. It's a 2-week camp. This is our 9th year.
mm,
Um, it's a cultural science camp
mm,
with all kinds of stuff in there that is strong based on our culture. mental health, wellness, like coping responses, meditation, higher education opportunities. So the high school students who come to the camp and successfully complete it, they will get recommendation letters from 4 different departments from the University of Virginia and 2 departments from Berkeley, which are really helpful when they're applying for scholarships and things like that. The kids we've had will get responses back from universities. They're like, how do you know Howie Epstein from UVA? You know, it's a big deal in that world, you know. So there's that. They get a small incentive. And every fall we do a college experience visit for 1 week, either Berkeley or UVA. We'll go there for a week. The kids stay in the dorms. They shadow a student. They live college life for a week. They go to a football game. They go to class. They go to Bodo's Bagels in the morning, or they'll get a coffee. You know, they get to have college life for a week.
Which college is this that they go to?
The University of Virginia, recently Berkeley. Last fall we went to Berkeley.
Oh wow, that should have been a heck of an experience there.
That was
just being in Berkeley.
yeah.
Yeah.
And home, they're so confident in all these different ways. And they're more focused in school. You know, they know what they need to do if they want to be successful for college.
Yes.
Goes long ways.
Yeah. You know, I when you say that, it occurs to me that probably one of the most important things to happen to young people who grow up on a res is to escape cultural imprisonment, basically. Because if that's the only thing you ever knew, that's your whole point of reference. It's hard for you to think outside of the box, even though people tell you. But once you go outside, then you come back and now you see your culture in a whole different way. You know, now it's not a prison, it's a fort. You know, it's like you can see all you, at least that's what happened to me when I left the inner city and went and saw something different, completely different. I could see opportunities where I didn't see them before.
Yep. I always say, when kids are given those kinds of opportunities, the world becomes their fishbowl.
Yes.
And reservation being the fishbowl, or the small town being the fishbowl. You know, that goes for anybody, anywhere.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
you see that those little changes, and they speak up more. You know, it's just they start planning, they get excited. And a lot of them, it's just cute. A lot of them have convinced their families to save money so they could go on a trip. So now all these families have their own little family goals to go see something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the bundle carriers camp also, so our people had bundle carriers, bundle keepers, when the reservation was created and all these different laws came, you know, punished for being Dakota, doing Dakota things. They buried the bundles, and that knowledge was shared, but it was shared in secret, kind of went underground. And through the camp, we're bringing it back, in a respectful, careful way. These things, like the universities privy to, this is just for us because of the over harvesting of medicines and stuff like that. But they learn the different harvesting protocols, the different plants, the uses. So at the end of camp, we have a scavenger hunt, which is really exciting because it's like one of them will be, my leg is broken, I have a high fever. What medicine could you give me to bring my temperature down? You know, and then they'll come back with the plant and they'll be like, and then you take this and you boil it, you know, so they know uses. And our goal is usually 25 to 30 plants every camp. The first week is high school, the second week is middle school, with the high school mentors to them, and teaching, taking a teaching role in different areas. So there's the plants, the medicine knowledge, how to utilize natural resources. So this year the kids are going to build the rammed earth wall. It'll kind of be like a fence, but they're gonna learn how we can utilize natural resources based on what's around us. They're gonna construct a mini scale bark lodge.
Mm.
That's because that's the next structure. I'm in the earth lodge right now. This is one of the first structures.
Mm.
But
Now, did you guys build that? Did you build that, or you just use it?
yeah, we built it.
Okay.
We built it last August.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's take a quick break here. We're going to come back to this, but I want to open it up to our esteemed guests here to ask questions, um, comments, anything so far.
Hi, Betty.
Yeah.
I saw Betty. Hi, Betty.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, we can go back to the pictures now. If you guys have, you can put questions in the chat too, and then at some point Colby can tell me if there's questions that we can address from your chat if you are shy and don't want to talk. Okay, so let's continue about with the let's say the payoffs of people going to see other things, having new experiences, learning more about the cultural medicines, building approaches to building shelters, all of those kind of things that you guys are making available to young people. Talk to us more about that.
So the three areas that we focus on, because there could be so many, and we were like, okay, we have to be realistic. Otherwise, you're running around trying to do everything. Environmental justice, land recovery, environmental justice. We purchased 30 acres of land. We're doing tallgrass prairie restoration. That goes back to the camp. So the first 7 years, we were using different plots across the reservation and studying the effects buffalo have on the land versus cattle, and seeing what was detrimental, which wasn't, and obviously buffalo are, beneficial. And one of the things we saw were how much better tallgrass prairie was doing with the presence of buffalo. And some of the plots that we were studying all through those years were being disrupted. The land use changed, one we were told we didn't have access to anymore, and we have them all GPSed in. And it kind of got kind of stressful. So we started looking at leasing our own land to do that on, and that was hard. We couldn't do that either. So we ended up buying 30 acres, and we thought, well, we'll do a tallgrass prairie restoration project of 30 acres of land, 5 of it being where the earth lodge is, where we're going to have a cultural camp, make a Dakota village, which the entire 30 acres is an outdoor classroom for learning for anybody who's interested in tallgrass prairie restoration, watershed protection, and all of the scientific things that fall into that. Like we have 2 large streams or rivers that run through the property, and beavers live here, so we know that's a good sign that the water's healthy enough animals are in it. But the kids are looking at the water filtering things that are like snails, cattails. They know from the different years of camp, if something's present in the water, that's the purpose of it. They understand that. Soil testing, but chemical use history, all of these things, and we're blueprinting it. So anybody who wants to do land recovery or tallgrass prairie restoration in the community, in their family, wherever, we'll give it to you. No need to be reinventing wheels, and the wheels are made.
When you say we'll give it to you, tell me more about the it. I missed that.
We're gonna create a document,
Hmm. Oh,
document
okay.
and video,
Hmm.
and then say you wanted to do that up in Roslyn, we'd be
Hmm.
like, here you go,
Hmm.
and you
Okay.
and use
Okay.
it,
Hmm.
so it'll help you, you know,
Yeah. So you can take off from where you guys started or learn from
learn.
you. Yeah. Hmm. Learn from you. Yeah.
Because
So
we want it to
so
be successful elsewhere.
yeah. So I'm taking it you're sharing this with the schools, right? And how about like the park department? Do you have like contacts in the park department that you know,
Yep.
and also, and I would say one more that comes to mind is tourism, you know.
Eco or agri, yeah, they've already been here.
Okay,
They're
good, good.
uh partner with NRCS, the conservation districts,
Yep.
um USDA's plant management center has been here. They
Mhm.
wanted it as a growing site, which is awesome. Because here we're gonna also have a medicinal garden. Um,
Mm,
we went wild ricing a year ago, and we brought back a whole bunch of seed. So we're gonna plant wild rice here. We're planting medicines here. You know, all the stuff we gather will be
mm.
here. So we have a, a clean gathering site.
Right, right, right. That's very interesting, especially the medicinal garden. And do you make the you know the whatever the you know the starter plants are, whether they're roots or plugs or seeds or whatever they need? Do you make that available to people?
No, we're maybe in 7 years. We're not there yet. We'll
Okay,
probably
all right.
plant
So if
resource.
people want, if after people got the knowledge, if they wanted to practice it, is there a place where they can find those things? So can you point them to where they can get started, or is this just to be hypothetical, or what?
So when we decided we were gonna buy land, we didn't know how, what, we didn't have money yet, we didn't have anything. But we
Hmm.
knew it was, we started a medicinal garden at Nis'to, our little headquarters, um, in the yard, because we had to start seed banking, seed for the land. So in doing that, we invited different families, and there's probably 20 some families who wanted to do something similar. And it's always better to do things as a group, then it doesn't feel like work and it's fun.
Okay.
So we've all shared plants, seeds. So we're right now we're to, we call them our generational seeds. We're like to the great grandchildren seeds of the original seeds we started.
Hmm.
And we have seed exchanges. Anytime we have a gathering, everyone brings their seeds.
Okay.
Thing now, which is exciting because not only do we like have our own seed bank, we want families to have their own seed banks too, and they do. Not only medicinal seeds, but like garden seeds too.
So you show them how to create those seed banks for their families. I'm
Yep.
taking it. Yeah. Okay.
We
Okay.
the other part of like land recovery is community gardening, food sovereignty. We have a community garden in town. Um, that is the 5th year of food sovereignty. We call it the Unkojupi Garden Project. Unkojupi means we all plant together. So we have master gardeners working with first time gardeners. It's fun and exciting, and we do it in a way where nobody has to weed a 2-acre garden. That just scares people away. So we keep it doable, um, easy, back to fun. We do a lot of food sovereignty workshops in the garden. So NRCS conservation people come. They're really pushing no-till methods.
Mm-hmm.
So have a lot of no-till example garden beds. We
Mm-hmm.
have bed garden beds, just trying to be the example and work alongside people who want to learn and do it. One of the rules of having the garden bed, they're free. We're not charging anybody. Um, one of the rules is you have to give us some seed back.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you guys are planting the seeds that are F1s or not hybrids or something like that. So you can take the seeds and make something out
Yeah,
of them.
we
Okay,
have
so go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
uh we have corn push hominy that we make push be like hominy soup. The 17th generation of that seed.
Wow. Hmm.
So and share it so families know it. They plant their own and then they bring back. It's just like a handful, just a handful of your seed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Keep them understanding seed harvesting is as important. And we're trying to get the tribe on board so they don't have to buy seed anymore because there's our GMO seeds.
Right, right. So now, at one time, the tribe had a program where they would provide, let's say, native trees, you know, for people to plant, and you just had to pick up the trees and you could plant them in your yard. And some of them were like actual edible things. Is that still going on? Are you guys working
No,
together?
they don't have trees anymore. They still do garden seeds,
Mhm.
chicken, and some of the bird, ducks maybe.
Ostrich, ostrich,
Um, yeah, they
eagle,
still
eagle.
still yeah, eagle eagle eggs. Um, they still have that program. Their tree programs, depending on what grants are available.
Mm,
So at our community garden, we got fruit trees. We're gonna have fruit trees there.
mhm,
We grew up, we grew up with gardens. We grew up with all of this stuff. And
mm,
I realized how many families didn't get to because they lived in town or they lived somewhere where the garden wasn't allowed in the yard. We went to the housing authority and talked to them about creating kind of like a policy to allow gardening.
mhm,
People
mhm.
could, and they said, well, they can. And I said, well, you got to let them know they think they can't, you know.
Yeah. Oh, you mean people think they can't, but actually they can. They just have to be, just sort of get eyeballs with the powers that be and just say, hey, we want to do this garden. Don't
Yeah.
come around weed sprayer and spray it down.
That's one of the things we're working on now with this year's camp is policy, understanding the policy, different levels of that would protect the environment. So they're going to be talking about the UN, the US, tribes,
Mm,
cities or towns, and states.
mhm,
What environmental policies exist or don't exist.
mm,
They're going to pretend, I'm going to pretend I'm the president, I'm going to pretend I'm the UN, I'm the chairman, I'm the mayor. Um, like one thing, like Betty, you're in Aberdeen. I don't know what your guys' is, and this is one thing they're gonna kind of look at. So for System, for example, there's no laws. And we actually had a neighbor 2 houses down. I was out in the yard and they were spraying Roundup.
mm,
Do
mm.
you know that smell? I don't stand in the
Yeah.
yard.
And you know
Thing.
that tingling sensation on your
Yeah,
skin too.
they're good. And he was spraying and he had all his stuff on and it was breezy that day and I could see it and
Mm,
it came down his yard. It went over the neighbor's zucchini, which were growing beautifully,
mm,
went all over them and came into my yard.
mm.
And I grabbed my dog and went inside. And I thought, why can't there be a consideration law? Like,
Mm,
okay, I'm gonna spray, but you know what? I gotta go knock on all the doors within a 2 block radius or
mm,
further,
mm,
saying I spray Roundup in my yard.
mm.
These are the days I plan on spraying, whatever, or I'm going to spray this afternoon. Like it's an inconvenience to them, but it's better than giving your neighbor cancer because that is
That's
a reality.
true. That's true. And in other places, they actually do have that. And where people are really aware of Roundup, if you spray Roundup, you will hear from the neighbors, because they know what Roundup is and what it does. At least in our area, if you spray Roundup, especially on a windy day, oh, you will hear it. And you might even get a visit from the sheriff.
See, we don't have, I asked the city council, a couple members about it and got the eye roll. And I'm like, well, we're going to have this conversation. But
Oh, yeah.
back, I will work with kids, like for these things. The more you understand things when you're young like that, imagine the decision making you're going to make when they're our age.
Right. Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
going to be so, you know.
Yeah. Well, this sounds like a real adulting program, you know, and it's been one of my pet peeves is that we treat people like they're infants until they're 18 and then complain that when they're, 18 in one day that they're not fully adults. And you were mentioning earlier, Dustina, that the human brain is not fully formed till we're 26. Well, interestingly enough, people didn't know that until the Industrial Revolution, and we needed people, and people wanted to keep people in the farm, and we invented the teenager. You know, at the turn of the 19th century, we invented the teenager. You go back in the 1800s and look at literature, you will not find the word teenager, because people, from the time you hit the ground, people were trying to get you ready to be an adult, and it wasn't unusual for people to have families at 12, 13, and 14. But moreover, you could take responsibilities for Pa's farm. You understood. And you see that in other cultures. I remember when I was living in West Africa, and it was not unusual to see a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy walking his father's cattle. And I don't mean 2 or 3 cows. I mean, as far as you could see, walking his father's cattle to market, right? Because they didn't have like a semi that they can put it on, and he walked them to market. And to have that kind of trust from your family, or if your father had a store, you know, if the father had to go into town, the kid took over the store, you know. So the idea that kids have to be stupid until they're 18 or 26 is just something I think we create because we have a hard time letting go of kids, and we're not training them. We say, oh, we don't want to push them too hard, but when they want to be, they want to know. And even when they're little kids, they want to like be helpful. They're always in your way. You give them a broom, and if you're sweeping, they want to be part of that if they got a connection. But we say, no, get out of my way. Go over there and watch TV, because and then when they get to be teenagers and they don't want to do it, then we get mad, you know. So it sounds like you're creating situations where people can learn adult skills while they're kids, and even practice it.
Skill building and leadership building. In ways that are encouraging and guiding. Now, one thing we don't do is like shaming, cultural shaming, because you see that too, and it's like it's not the child's fault. They don't know what they don't know.
That's right.
And we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to go forward in whatever it is we're learning. And I've seen instances where could be all of our stuff is trauma informed, so people understand. You're working with kids, and just
Talk to us
because.
about the trauma informed before we get too far, so we know what we're talking about. What does that mean?
So some years ago, we spent a month with different students from the Curry Institute, and
From the what? From the what institute?
The University of Virginia is like their mental health, their counselor. They're psychologist school, called the Curry Institute. I think they have a different name now, but and we spent a month observing different spaces in the community, and they stayed with families. They stayed with a single family, they stayed with this traditional family, they stayed with a Christian family, they stayed with a workaholic family. And they worked in areas in our tribal government that worked with the youth. They worked in the youth department, they're in JOM, they're in education department. And every Friday we get together and summarize, what we were looking for was how are our adult responses to, oh, my phone got weird. How are our adult responses to youth? Are we using our own experiences? Because you hear that argument too. Why I grew up that way. That doesn't make it right to do that to a kid.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
exactly. Yeah.
How much humanness are we bringing into our workspaces where we work with kids that are okay or not? And are we re-traumatizing kids?
Mm,
Are we triggering them? Do we know what trigger? Because probably the past 10 years, these words weren't being used.
mm,
Self-care,
yeah,
triggering, trauma informed. When I first heard self-care, I laughed.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, it was
yeah,
time for. But now it's really important. It's like this is where art comes in. But there are human needs that we need to understand, and how do we address it, respond to it in different forms.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think the other thing is, I think we're learning stuff. Whether it's the greater culture, greater meaning bigger culture overall, whether it's that culture or whether it is, a more microcosm, like a small Roslyn culture or something like that. There are things that our cultures learn that the older people didn't know. And sometimes we assume that, well, if the old people didn't know, it's not relevant. Well, I haven't found that that's true. There are many things that I didn't know when I was growing up. Now that I know, then boy, that would have been really useful for me when I was 15 if I knew that, if I had that experience. But I didn't. But that doesn't mean that a kid who's 15 now can't do that, because there were some places I couldn't go because I didn't have the transportation at 14 or 15. Or at least I didn't know how to get there. And there are some people I hadn't talked to those people, but now we have more access. So why wouldn't we? Yeah.
And now, for as long as humans have been here, we sure are young in our stages of learning and doing and being.
Mm.
Um, I lost my train of thought on my example. Oh, those years of struggling, now we have the luxury to learn. Now we have the luxury to provide. You know, in the 80s, we grew up in struggle,
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's a whole different thing.
I didn't realize then how much culture we had. It was just normal, you
Mm.
know.
Mm.
And then in the 90s, well, in the 80s, there was a lot of shame for being Native, Indian. No,
Yep.
the darker you were, the worse you got treated. And we were little dark kids running around. And
Yeah.
it never occurred to us until we left the safety of Toka Bay
Mm.
and were in other spaces and saw how natives were being treated for being Native
Mm.
by non-natives and even by other natives. And we
Mm.
didn't understand why.
Mm.
And when people would not want to be Native, and we didn't understand what that meant. Now
Mm.
we have people, what do they call them? Pretendians. People saying they are, not leave.
Yeah.
That's how in the urban areas. They're like, nobody ever did that on the res.
Yeah,
No one
yeah.
ever
You
did
have people who hate brown and black people, but they're out on the sun. They're out in the beach trying to get as dark as they can. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that works either. But hey, that's not my issue. I, I
And it,
think I think Betty. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your
oh,
thought.
it's it's interesting to see how things are evolving.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
They're better than they were. We got a ways to go, but they're a lot
Hmm.
better than they were.
That's right. Betty, you were going to add something. I thought you had that look on your face.
Well, last week I attended a program at the library here in Aberdeen. I did not know that the Presentation Sisters, since their convent has been sold, the college is not, anyway, they are using their land north and west of the buildings to restore the prairie. And it's
Yeah.
a fabulous project. And maybe someday when Dustina's over this way, she'd want to run up there and take a look at it.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Well, we got 5 minutes to go, and I would like to use that 5 minutes to have you tell us, where do you want to be in 5 years? What are the kind of things that you would hope to be normalized or that you hope to be beginning or whatever? 5 years, where do you want to be?
Hope we'll have this 30 acres established enough where the 5 acres are all the cultural structures. We have the bark lodge, we have the earth lodge, we're gonna have the bark lodge, our outdoor gazebo, which is gonna have a 3-season kitchen, bathrooms and showers, a huge learning space, a medicinal garden, our walking path for anybody who wants to come walk the property to learn about tallgrass prairie restoration, including the Dakota culture in ways where we can share, but it's not like putting it all out there. We're gonna have buffalo on the property so people could learn the effects buffalo have. Also, we're studying buffalo saliva. Sounds gross, but it's interesting. It's a natural miracle grow, and we're trying to understand why.
You say
how-
buffalo? Did you say buffalo saliva? Interesting. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're raising them as babies, so
Hmm.
they're tame with us. Gerald German with the ranch, he has a buffalo he raised as a baby. Billy, his name is, and we've all went and bottle fed Billy and all this. He's huge now, and he's out with the other buffalo. We wondered how they were going to respond to him because he was always by the house. Nothing. We thought they would like reject him, but no, he hangs out with them. But when you go over there and call him, he comes over and he'll eat out of your hand.
Yeah. He's a multicultural buffalo.
Yeah, but you can collect saliva from him because you can get close to him. And we want to do that. So our buffalo, we're going to raise his babies, bottle feed,
And then they won't take off your pants if you go near them.
Yeah, we turn our pants up over here. But it'll be set up. I'm hoping in 5 years, all of those things will be set up and established so people can come, learn about that, learn about the culture. We might even have, if anyone's been to Williamsburg, you know how they have it, like the history tour set up, like have a Dakota village here people can come learn from. We had a group of Norwegians asking if they could come here. I said, yeah, we're not ready yet, but we have 7 teepees. So our camp will be here, but also it might be a form of economic development for tribal members who want to share pieces of the culture that they want to share in the setting if people come in as a way to keep things going here. We're totally off the grid. We're solar powered, so we don't have a light bill. God.
Sure. Well, one quick question. Sharon wants to know, what do you use the saliva for?
We're going to apply it to plants and compare the effects of them versus plants with no saliva.
Okay. Yeah. They often have saliva, has human or otherwise, has lots of interesting nutrients. We got about 1 minute or so. What can the general public do to put wind in your sail?
We have a page. Just follow us, see what we're doing, show what we're doing. There's always families who want to be a part of the learning. It's open to everyone. We share TikTok videos. We try to follow the social trends because we work with kids. So TikTok is the thing, but it also lets us do snapshots of what we do. So follow our Facebook page. I think he put it in the chat. We're always updating on there. So.
All right. Well, and I will encourage folks to take this moment to go on under the chat and find that little, 3 dots and click on that and download it to your computer, and or select the whole thing and copy and paste it somewhere so that you will have those links. That's wonderful. Well, Dustina, it's been really great to have this time to have this conversation. And you and I have to get together. We say that often, but I mean, it has to happen,
Betty.
Yeah. Because I haven't, Betty too. Yeah. We can like strap her to the top of a van and bring her.
Yeah.
I'll
Summer.
just jump on and go. I was just waving to Sharon.
Okay, yeah, all right. All right, well, everybody, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time, same station, right here on Brainstorming the Human Connection.
Dustina.